So you ask a really good question about the domain of this function, and you're exactly right that we want to make sure that the expression underneath the radicand is non-negative. So we go ahead and set x minus 2 over x squared minus 9 to be greater than or equal to 0. I think at this point it's best to put it into factored form. And then y? Well, at this point, as you said, we could go ahead and put it into a number line. And what do we put on the number line? We put onto the number line all values where the expression is either 0 or undefined. So the expression is 0 at x equals 2. So let me just go ahead and label that up there. That's where it's 0. And it's undefined at the values of negative 3 for this factor here and the value of 3 for this factor here. So this is where the expression was undefined. So your question was, if we pick a value to the left of 2, won't we have a negative radicand? And the answer is it depends on which value we pick to the left of negative 2. For instance, if we take negative 4 and we plug it into this expression, we'd have, for the numerator, we'd have negative 4 minus 2, that's a negative numerator, divided by, if we plug in negative 4 into this factor, that factor would be negative, and this factor would be negative in the denominator, so we've got a negative times a negative. And so we would end up with a negative numerator over a positive denominator. And yes, for sure, if we pick the value negative 4, this expression would come out to be negative. So we would label that region as negative there. But if we were to pick a value like 0 and plug it into this radicand, you could do it up here, or you could do it in the factored form, it doesn't matter. Let's plug it up in this first expression. If I plug in 0, I'll have 0 minus 2. Well, that's negative, surely. But if I have 0 squared minus 9, the denominator is also negative. And so, in fact, if I take a number like 0, or in fact any number between negative 3 and 2, and plug it into the expression, I'm going to actually have a positive value, and so the radicand will be greater than 0. If we take a number like 2.5 and plug it in, I'm going to plug it into this expression here. If we plug in 2.5, this numerator will be positive, this factor will be positive, but this factor will be negative, and so we find that that entire region is negative. And if we take a number to the right of 3, say 5 or something like that, notice that all factors are positive, and so the region is positive. So in answering the question, what's the domain? What is the domain of this function, f of x? We're going to take all values where the, let me be a little more careful there. We're going to take all values where the radicand is positive, which is from negative 3 all the way to 2, and we're also going to take values from 3 to infinity. We, of course, never include infinity. It's just a concept. It just stands for a large number, so we're going to put a parentheses there. Now, why is 3 on the number line? 3 is on the number line because if I were to plug a 3 into this expression, I'd find out that the expression is undefined there. So I'm not going to include 3 in my solution set. Similarly, negative 3 is on the number line because that's where the original expression was undefined, so we're going to put a parentheses there. And lastly, we are going to include 2. How come? Because 2 is on the number line because that's where the entire expression will be 0, and I can take the square root of 0. And you could check that. If you want to compute it, f of 2, you'd have the square root of 2 minus 2 all over 2 squared minus 9, which would equal the square root of 0 over negative 5, which is just the square root of 0, which is 0. So 0 is included in my answer set, which is why it gets a bracket, whereas 3 and negative 3 don't. Finally, we join them together with a union. Hey, I hope this was helpful. If not, let me know. Thanks.